All right, so this is a bit out of band to what I do, namely birds on my channel, but I wanted to share this. Of course, it's 5:30 and it's dark. So this thing is an outdoor wood boiler, and there's Hawkeye. Now, some of you may know what an outdoor wood boiler is, and others may not. The nice thing about this, and what this does, is it heats up water for you. You see up there, it's got a chimney. And it heats up water by using wood. So you load wood, it has a water jacket around the interior, and it's about 200 gallons. You can see there it says 186. So I keep it about 190 so that I can get water in the house. It's pretty hot. But you open this door here, you can see it's not on fire. But what it is in the bottom there, it has a coal bed, and that keeps everything warm. If you open it up, and you leave it open, it will eventually catch on fire. And the problem with that is it'll overheat, and then it'll start blowing water out of the top of it. On the side here, you have a door, and excuse me, and you can open it up. And you'll see there that we have an outlet up top and an inlet right there at the bottom. And then right here we have a water circulating pump, and that pumps it through this PEX down into the house, and this one over here returns it. So you always keep water in it. That water, like I said, is 186 degrees. Now the nice thing about this is that in my case, this wood is free. Thanks to another guy that I partnered with. He is starting up a firewood business, and this means effectively that I can heat my home for free. Right now in the Northeast United States, diesel fuel, or home heating fuel, number 2 fuel oil, is hitting kind of close to $600 or $6. And the problem with that is I have a 500-gallon tank with about 75 gallons left in it. So I'm looking at close to $2,500 or $3,000 for about 400 gallons of fuel. I don't really want to pay that kind of money for fuel for 4 or 5 months of heating. It just doesn't make sense to me when I can put that money into something like this and heat my house for free. So yeah, I don't know. Let's go inside and have a look at what I've done in the basement to save me some money and get this heat into the house. Give me one sec. So here we are in the basement. Now you'll notice there's a lot going on here, and some of you may have some judgment. I don't really care. This is what it is. So we have our lines coming in to a plate heat exchanger, and that's what this thing is right here. And what that does is keep your water line or your loops separate. So water will come in, cross over plates inside there, transfer heat, and go back out. That heat then gets dumped into these loops, and we have another circulator, and that will cycle it into my boiler. Now this boiler here has a little tank. It's probably like, I don't know, 5 or 10 gallons. It's not a whole lot. And it keeps that hot. So if we look at this gauge here, we can see that it says 170 degrees. And I have this guy here taped. It's got a little sensor taped to my my inlet of my boiler, and that says 185. Someone's lying. Regardless, I think this might be a little more reliable. So it's sitting at 185. This circulator runs 100% of the time, and it just keeps the water moving in here, and this stays hot. Now, you may be wondering why I kept the oil boiler in place. There's a reason for that. So you set your, this thing here is what's called an aquastat, and you set your aquastat low, much lower than the water temp in here. Now what that does is it keeps the oil blower from firing, and as long as it's above what this is set at, this boiler will never fire. Now what this does for me is if I go away for a week and I'm unable to fill my outdoor wood boiler with wood, the fire goes out, and say it's freezing or whatever. As long as this is still above 0, which you actually cannot set it to 0, it only goes as low as 140. When this has no heat in it, this will fire. So what that'll do is effectively make this a backup heat source. So when my outdoor wood boiler isn't heating, this will turn on and keep my house warm, or warm enough that my pipes and stuff don't freeze. So it's good to keep this. This part right here, you can kind of see some, copper coming out of there. So inside of this is a little different than a normal boiler. Most boilers have like a water tank in there, and that water tank just circulates water through your main loops to your house. Now this has what's called a tankless water heater in it, and basically it's the same thing as this, but in this one it's tubes. So the tubes go in and they're twisting as they go in. They have a bunch of little fins carved on them, and what you can do with that is cycle all your water, your potable water, into it. So what that does is you cycle your potable water into it, it heats it up, and it comes back out. It goes through your mixing valve there, which I need to replace since it's probably older than me. And it mixes hot and cold water so you don't burn your skin off. 180 degree water is hot, very hot. But yeah, so this is effectively a hot water heater as well. And what that does is make all your showers hot, your sinks hot, all that good stuff. And you don't need one of these. So this water heater here is a high efficiency unit, has effectively an air conditioning unit in the top that runs in reverse and dumps the heat into the water instead of into the room. So when this thing's on, it's actually blowing cold air out of here like a normal air conditioner, but instead of the outlet or the fins being on the outside of your window, they're in the tank. So it heats up your hot water heater for relatively low cost, relatively low cost. Right now, wearing off. And I had the forethought to put these valves in place. So we turn these two off and open up this middle one, and that lets the water come in and bypass the hot water heater and go back. This was set at 120. That's set at 180. And I'll tell you what, the water that comes out of this son of a bitch now, holy shit, you have to be careful. Because yeah, it's spicy. I had some issues with it over the past 2 days, and those issues are easily resolved with time and patience. You have to bleed this system of air, and even touching this thing's freaking hot. You have to bleed this system of air, because what ends up happening is if you have air bubbles in here, they sit at the little impeller in this pump and they cavitate, and you end up pumping no water, and this thing gets super hot and burns out. The water that's in this line, even though it's 180 degrees, still cools that pump. So it needs to have water passing, or otherwise it dies. Now these are cool. They're called cartridge filters, or cartridge pumps. So basically what you end up doing here is if this does burn out, you remove 4 of these screws. There's one on each corner. You can take this back half off and swap out the cartridge and put a new one in. These are like those crappy little aquarium pumps that eventually fail and they start rattling and make all kind of goddamn noise. That's what this is, but bigger and more reliable. So it has a whole magnetic type cartridge you just pull out, throw away, and put a new one in. Cheapish, easy to replace, but about half the cost of buying a new one. So this is my main loop, goes to all my hydronic baseboard heating and stuff like that. So all this is doing is keeping that tank hot. Instead of firing that, it uses wood to keep all of this warm. Actually, I should have some air in here now, but if we open it up, this is what's called the blow-off valve. So if it goes over, we look on this thing here, see that bottom needle? if it goes over like where that little red mark is on the bottom, this will pop and blow water out. Ow, fuck. I got this bucket underneath it here right now to catch any water. But if we pop it, no, I must have got all the air out. But you can see if we pop it, it dumps water out. So I think I got all the air out of this. Otherwise, it'd make a weird burp noise. So that means everything is cycling the way it should. And I've been maintaining a fairly steady temperature down here on this guy. So I think I got all the air out. So yeah, heating my house for free. It's glorious. I don't have to spend $6 a gallon on fuel. And you know, the bad thing is here, you have to excuse the mess. I have been working down here. There's just a lot of shit all over the place. I have a 500-gallon oil tank, and it's like right here full. So she's real low. Like I said, the cost is so much. I'm looking at almost $3 grand to put 500 gallons back in this. It's not worth it right now. It's just ridiculously expensive. With the world climate and how things are going, with all the oil costs and all that shit, it just doesn't make sense to run this at the moment. So alternative heating sources are, you know, in demand. Actually, when I called the guy, he's like, yeah, see all my tools and shit. He's like, wow, you're like the 10th person who's called me this week. So, you know, but I was able to get the money together for my boiler, opposed to other people. So, whatever. Yeah, so, you know, I hope you enjoyed. Hope you maybe learned something. I don't know, or got a glimpse into how my heating system works. And I'll see you later.